Hi everybody, this is Betty, 007 Betty. No, is this 007? No, I guess this is Blues Brothers.
No. Who's the one who killed himself with drugs?
Oh gosh, don't even go there.
Dan Aykroyd and Belushi, John Belushi.
Oh, John Belushi.
So you're John Belushi.
Okay, so I'm John. Hi everybody, this is John Belushi, and I'm here close and personal with Dr. Mark Goulston. And we're going to be talking about the art of listening today. We decided that the last time we did a, thank you, Matt. I see he loves the filters. This is kind of fun. Okay, so this is Dr. Mark Goulston's book, and I wanted to talk about this. Hi, Victoria. Oh my gosh, Vicky, how are you?
Hi, Victoria.
This is a book that Dr. Goulston wrote, and I wanted you to get close and personal. This is
cool.
Yeah. So let's talk about listening and the art of listening. You recently came back from Russia, and you talked to the folks in Russia, the Kremlin, and did a big speech about, and some trainings and some workshops on listening. What do you think is the biggest mistake that people make in business as it relates to communication?
I think the biggest mistake, especially in contemporary business, is a lot of people are momentum junkies. And so what that means is when you're talking, and this is a problem I have since I wrote this book. My wife will tell you, since he wrote the book, he's the worst listener. And part of it is when you're talking, you're getting stuff off your chest, and you're feeling great. But what you don't realize is that when you're getting stuff off your chest and you're feeling great, you could be boring the other person or agitating them. But when you're feeling good, oh, I'm talking about all this, you can't imagine they're not feeling good. And they're looking at their watch and they're going like this, and you're not taking a hint.
Right.
And what happens is a lot of times when we're talking about something passionately and we're excited about it, we're actually feeling great about it, and we disconnect from our audience.
Yes.
And we don't take a hint. In fact, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but I'll mention it this time. A friend of mine, Marty Nemko, he has an NPR show, Careers with Marty Nemko. It's out of San Francisco, and he is terrific, and he just busts me. And so after Just Listen came out, here you go, it's on Kindle this month for $5.97.
Oh, that's right. Please purchase it.
Yeah.
Actually, not please purchase it. Take advantage of it, because
that's right.
It's the moment to do that. So $5 and change on Kindle. So
that's right.
Go in
and when you get that, see, if you bought this one, you'd have to read it in the mirror, because it's backwards. But if you buy the one on Kindle, I think you'll be able to read it.
Okay, there you go.
And if you're old like me, you get the large font, that's like 3 words a page. But what happened is he said to me, Mark, for a guy who wrote a book on listening, you're a terrible listener. And he gave me this thing called the traffic light rule.
Oh, okay.
And the traffic light rule is that if you're in a conversation and the other person hasn't really given you permission to talk, get into a monologue, pontificate, he said you have 20 seconds and the light goes from green to yellow and you're starting to wear out your welcome. And if you keep talking for another 20 seconds, the light goes from yellow to red and you've worn out your welcome. And so it's a great rule, and he says, what you got to watch for is the 40 seconds goes by like that.
It does. It really does. It brings me to a conversation I had last week. We were having a conversation. There were 3 people on the call, and it was a vendor that wanted to get our services, and this individual was looking to renew services that we already had. So there was clear value that we see in this particular vendor. And they continue to, once we agreed, okay, we're going to be renewing,
They kept talking?
They kept talking and they kept selling. And I kept thinking in my head, I couldn't do this because we were on the phone. I said, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get back to you. Let's go ahead and renew. And we're really excited about it. And then they kept saying, yes, and you're going to be getting so much value. And this is, you know, we're all about service. We already got that. So as soon as you get the yes,
stop selling.
Graciously stop and thank them. And then move on to the next steps, and stop and listen to the clues that your client is giving to you. Now let's turn that same thing to a relationship, to listening, because every time you hear me talk about anything to do with business, I will always put it back to personal also, because whatever we do in business also applies in relationship. When you're getting someone to come into the company, or you're talking to your individual producers, or you're talking to your team members or your associates, you have to build personal relationship with them so that they can trust you. But you have to be genuine and authentic. You can't just do it just so that they can just trust you and produce for you, right?
So here's where I take a subject that's woo-woo, because a lot of producers, they go, yeah, I need to listen. Yeah, I really should listen, but they never listen. So when I'm talking about the importance of listening to engineers, before they check out, what I say to them, here's why you need to listen to other people versus talking. So when you're talking to other people, and they've heard enough, they start to feel like you're talking at them. You may think you're talking to them, but they feel you're talking at them. And I'm a neuroscientist, so here's the deal. When someone feels you're talking at them, their stress and cortisol goes up. And when their stress and cortisol goes up, they have what I call cortisol deafness, meaning they start to tune out, they try to get away from you.
Yes, they do.
And what happens is, if you keep doing it, their cortisol, when it goes up and stress goes up, it triggers something in their brain called an amygdala. And an amygdala is part of your emotional brain.
Right back
and when
here.
you trigger it, it hijacks you away from thinking.
Yes.
And so if you keep doing this, you trigger their cortisol, their amygdala, they go into fight or flight.
Hold on just 1 second.
Who's this?
Alexandria, my daughter, just said we're so cool. And there's Regan, and Alex is up in...
Regan,
I know.
what is
Regan.
it? Can we get her on the thing?
I don't.
Where in the
think we
world is
can.
Waldo? I mean, Regan. She's all over the
And
world.
there's
You can't
Claudia
pin her down.
also. So people think they like our glasses. I kind of like this
This is
look.
good.
Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to slow down a little bit. Cortisol creates high stress, and this is what you were talking about. When the cortisol creates high stress and the stress levels begin to go up, your listening skills begin to go down.
Absolutely.
So pay very close attention when you're having a conversation with someone. Hi, Audrey. When you're having a conversation with someone, and thank you, we are hot in those glasses, and it makes us feel kind of cool, doesn't it?
That's good. I like
so,
English.
I know, I like it too.
I like this black and white version.
Wait, I know.
This is film noir.
I know.
Film noir.
Oh, film noir.
Noir. You're
Yeah,
the Latino. You should be able to speak other
but
languages.
but you're talking about French. Film noir. Okay.
Go on.
Anyway, so do not have a serious conversation with someone where it's very delicate in nature and you're trying to get them to listen to you. In Malaysia, oh my goodness, check you out. We just love you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Regan. She is both our mentee. How do you like that?
That's right. Are you at Mind Valley, Regan? If
Okay,
you're not,
hold
okay.
on.
Well,
We
I
have
want to put a
people
plug for
listening.
that. Okay, sorry
I know.
about that. Okay.
And so you don't want to have those types of conversations when the stress is high. It's always better just to postpone it and to calm yourself down. That's why whenever I'm going to have a serious conversation with someone, I say, is this a good time? Put your seatbelt on. If it isn't a good time, then why don't we talk about this tomorrow? But just be ready. Yes, she is. She just said, yes, she is. So continue. You were talking about the amygdala.
Well, so what happens? So what happens? The cortisol goes up, the amygdala goes up, and it hijacks you away, so you're not present.
Correct.
You're intense, you're not present. And what's interesting is the antidote for cortisol and stress is oxytocin. And one of the reasons women, at least women who used to be more demure in the olden days, when they were more patient with the men in their lives, the babies in their lives, us. What happens is one of the reasons women used to live longer than men is that, see, when the cortisol goes up for men, our stress goes up, we pull away, we're a little paranoid, we try to figure it out, and then when we figure out, we come back, we take the hill, we win, our blood pressure goes up, our pulses go up, we get strokes, we die. Whereas women, they know that when they're under stress, they talk. Because when they talk and they feel heard, their oxytocin goes up. And here's the interesting thing, is when oxytocin goes up, cortisol goes down, and what happens is your amygdala goes back into the saddle, and you come up with your own solutions. So if you're a man or you're a woman and you have these kinds of energetic sort of interactions, one of the reasons you want to let the person with the emotional energy get things off their chest is because, and this is what a lot of women will say to the men in their life if they want to get something off their chest. Look, I am not stupid. When you give me solutions that I don't want, I am not stupid. If you would let me get things off my chest, we could bond, and when I bond, I feel less alone in my frustration. And when I feel less alone in my frustration, my amygdala goes nicely back into the saddle instead of hijacking me, and I'll come up with my own solutions. The problem with for a lot of men who are left brain and engineers, as soon as they pick up emotion, they get scared.
They do.
Deers in the headlights
and then
of the car.
they go into this fight or flight response, and then they walk away. And what happens is, Alex is saying, this reminds me of the book Crucial Conversations.
Great book.
People like to feel safe in a conversation. If you create a safe space, you can be in a better position to create this. Absolutely, Alex. And what I was trying to say was, when the man goes into fight or flight and he feels like he needs to walk away, a lot of the times we feel like, don't walk away because you're abandoning me. I really need to get this off my chest. And so what are your thoughts about us saying, or the other person, and this is not necessarily gender specific, because this could actually be men or women, right?
What if a man did this to you? Because I'm reminded of a session when I saw some couple 20 years ago, and she was talking, and he got up and he went to leave, and she looked at me and looked at him and said, "Oh, it's just like him. He runs away. He doesn't deal with that. He doesn't deal with anything." And I'll never forget it. You know, he was sort of in the doorway about to walk into the other part of my consulting thing, and he looked at her and he looked at me and he said, "I'm walking away before I get angrier, because I'm here to protect you. I'm the protector, and you're so frustrating me that I'm getting angry. And right now, I need to protect you from me, because I'm at my wit's end. And I'll never forget
enough about you
to remove you from harm, which could be me."
Exactly. And what she's hearing is, you're walking away from me, because what she's doing is she's viewing it from something behind in her past where somebody else may have walked away from her. And so she's seeing this individual as the opposite. And this doesn't necessarily have to be gender specific.
There's a certain rational, logical energy, and there's a certain emotional connectedness energy. And so the emotional energy is great for connectedness. And we need connectedness.
We do.
And the analytical energy is, let's take the hill, let's solve. And the thing is, it shouldn't be either or.
No. And so we're talking about listening and in dialogue between two individuals. So there is the analytical part, and then there's the emotional part. And we talked about the fact that when stress levels begin to go up, cortisol begins to go up. And likewise, when cortisol begins to go up, then stress level begins to go up. And this is the neuroscience of this. This is how our bodies are made up. It isn't somebody making this up. This is for real. And then what we need to do is we need to calm down before we have any type of serious conversation that could cause stress. Otherwise, as cortisol goes up, then we begin to not listen. Our ability to listen gets inhibited. And so in a dialogue, when one of the people feels like, oh my gosh, I need to get away from here, then the other person sometimes feels like, you're leaving me, you're abandoning me, wait a minute, you're being disrespectful to me. And we're making it about us, and we're not making it about the person. And what Dr. Mark was saying is the person could be walking away because they can feel the levels of cortisol going up, and then before they can attack that person, they're protecting them from themselves, and they're saying, you know what, I need to walk away and I need to calm down.
I need to calm myself down because before I get angrier.
Exactly.
So what's happened is when you're venting in order to get stuff off your chest so you can calm down, they're escalating. But if they're in the position of being the protector, as they escalate, they go. There we are.
Here we go.
I'll get real close. Okay.
So you were talking about the amygdala. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
Okay, we're closer.
Are we there? Are we there?
Yeah, we're here. We're here.
There are masks. There you go.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're there.
Okay, good. So, okay. Eat your heart out, coffee, tea, and leaf, whatever it is. We're at Starbucks.
We're at Starbucks, outside of Starbucks. Just
Hello,
so we can,
Howard
we can
Schultz.
catch-
Hi, Howard. Oh, he left.
he
Howard Schultz,
left. So back to the art of listening. So let's talk for just a moment, and we're going to finish up with this, about the times when we hear something, but we're not really leaning in to really understand what the person really said. I had a conversation with someone about an experience I had when someone told me something. They said, you're in the wrong group. And what I heard was, you don't belong and you're not good enough. So let's talk about the true art of listening. Hey, Mike Murphy, are you in Medellin in Colombia? Yay, this is great. So let's talk about when somebody says something and we hear something else because it's a trigger. That person can trigger something that came from our backgrounds or from the past.
So I'm going to share something. This is up close and personal.
Okay. That's okay. It's only between you and me and
whoever's watching.
and these
Okay,
folks.
so,
So you're safe.
So a friend of mine named Dr. Shawnee Duperon, she has something called Project Forgive. It was nominated for Nobel Prize.
I love Shawnee. She's fantastic.
Oh, that's right. You spoke to her, yeah.
Yes,
so,
I did.
She gave me this quote, which is the top quote, and I collect quotes, and she said, forgiveness is accepting the apology you will never receive. So what happened is my father died 22 years ago, and my father was good with numbers, but he wasn't a relation kind of person. And so when I was growing up, I wanted his approval and acceptance and whatever. And so if I got a 90, he'd say, you can do better. Now when he said you can do better, what I thought he was saying is what you did is crap.
Oh,
it's
my
not good.
goodness. You want to hear something funny? My father used to do the same thing.
So 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 if you're listening, this will change your life.
This is huge.
This will change your life. So I applied Shawnee's thing, accepting the apology you'll never receive. So this is what I now hear my father saying to me is, I didn't say that a 90 was crap. I just said I'm a numbers person. If you get a 90, you can get 100. I'm actually proud of you. You've actually gone further than I imagined. And so what I would say, if you're a parent and you do this, if my father had said to me, this is great and you can do even better, as opposed to you can do better, would have changed everything.
It would have. And you weren't in a place where you could articulate, Daddy,
right.
if you can say it this way, then I will take it differently. But
But I got to finish the answer.
Okay,
so what happened is, as I imagine him saying that to me,
Yes.
and he's been dead for 22 years, I imagine him apologizing. I never meant that. I've started apologizing to him and saying, you know, I apologize to you for resenting you when I misunderstood you. I mean, I had a chip on my shoulder thinking you were telling me I wasn't good enough, and I heard it wrong. And every time I say, and I apologize for hearing it wrong, I get emotional, because I think, what a shame that to misunderstand that the other person is not saying what you think they're saying. They're not trying to hurt you. They don't know any better because no one taught them how to do it.
Exactly.
So if you're listening to this is, and see, when I imagine him apologizing, my cortisol goes down, my oxytocin goes up, I bond to him.
Yes.
And then when I bond to him, I can come back to seeing things rationally, and the rational thing was, he didn't know any better. He was a numbers guy. So I hope if you're hearing this, please take it to heart. You know, please don't miss out on the years that I missed out on.
Oh my goodness, that is such incredible advice. As I'm thinking through so many different situations in my life and in the people around me, when a parent has said something and they didn't know how to deal with something, and they said something, and the other person, what they heard was, I'm not good enough for you, or you don't love me, or I'm unlovable, or you're not listening. And so we take it so personally. And I think it maybe that advice is fantastic, Mark, for someone who has already passed away. Even when someone is still alive and they say something to us, I'm gonna say something I haven't said in public, but only once. There was a situation in my career, and this individual's retired now, so I can say this, I won't say any names, when this individual, very high up in an organization that I worked for, said something very inappropriate to me. I went home that night and I thought, this is a career-defining moment. A week later, we had a one-on-one, and this individual said, hey, Betty, and started just like nothing had happened. Of course, I said, I need to clear something with you. When you said this to me, and I said it exactly, I said to him, I realized no one in my entire career has been so disrespectful to me. And I said those words. And then I thought, okay, either you're a bully or you're under stress. So in the last week, I've been doing some research about you, and I have been talking to people all around the company in different areas of the company and in different positions. And what I found is that you're not a bully. What's going on? And this individual said to me, oh my gosh, Betty, I owe you an apology. I am so sorry. What happened is my superiors, which in this case, this person was very high up, my superiors said to me that I needed to make a decision, and I was under a lot of stress, back to the cortisol. I was under a lot of stress, and so I needed to get this done, and the only way that I knew that I could just get this done was by saying this and this and this and this. And he said, I'm so sorry. So he calmed down after he apologized, and I said, look, you don't need to do that. Not with me. I'm here to watch your back. I got you. My daddy taught me to be a woman of honor, and I'm going to tell you that I expect that this won't happen again. I said this. Now, this was a career-defining moment, but he was calm enough that I was able to say this to him. Had I said this to him when the cortisol was up, the conversation probably would have gone a different way.
But you respected him as being under stress as opposed to attacking him as a bully.
I did not attack him. And I could have gone to HR. His career probably would have been done. And I would have been probably marked. And, you know, a lot of people feel like, oh my gosh, if I speak up, then I'm the fall guy and so forth. But by really paying attention and having that innocent curiosity, I always talk about innocent curiosity, and really trying to understand, wow, it's unlike this person to be like this. is this person really a bully, or are there other circumstances that are going on around them? And we do this with employees. When employees are stressed because something's going on, wouldn't it be wonderful for us to just stop and let ourselves calm down and try to understand, where are they coming from?
Totally.
What's going on in their life? Maybe somebody's dying at home. Maybe they had a fight with their spouse. Maybe somebody just gave them some terrible news about a death in the family or something. We don't know what's going on with the other person.
Yeah, I got to share a story that you just reminded me of. It's in, I think it's in Just Listen, available on Kindle now for a short time.
This is Dr. Goulston's book. It's a fantastic book that I'm buying for my VIP clients next week.
And it's in color.
It is in color. Right now we're kind of in our
blues thing.
In our blues.
But listen to this story, because this is an OMG story. So there's a friend of mine many years ago, and her name was Heidi, and she said that she was the top performer in some company, and on a Friday, and she was working in London, and a Friday, her boss, who she thought the world of her, said, I need you to get everything out of your desk, pack up and leave.
Oh my goodness.
And so what happened, she did that, and she never knew what happened, and and so that haunted her for 20 years. Like, how could I have read it? I was a good person, and they just said, you need to leave.
Oh,
and
wow.
then she ran, so she ran into this woman 20 years later, and then she felt so ashamed and whatever, what did I do wrong? And she said to the woman, well, I have to tell you, I've been haunted by that forever. And what the woman said to her was, Heidi, you are our best employee, and what I couldn't tell you is that the federal agents were going to come in and arrest all of us, and I couldn't tell you it, and I had to get you out of there and protect you because you were our best.
Goodness.
And I couldn't say anything more. And she's, and don't you get the chills? I mean,
yes,
she's like,
that's
and she was thinking, my
amazing.
God. So
Wow.
before you jump to conclusions, it's what Betty's saying, pause and say, in fact, I think in Just Listen, here's a tip. Here's a tip to resolving any conflict you're having with another person.
And we'll close with this tip.
We'll close with this. So if it's escalating and your cortisol's going up, just asking yourself the question in your head, what's it like for the other person right now? Just being curious about it without even knowing, it will change everything. My wife and I were having one of these tit for tat kind of things some years ago, and and she said something and I said something, and then I was pausing to reload, and then I thought, or she was pausing, and then I thought, what's it like for her right now? And I said to her, I love my wife, I said, do you like where this is going? Because I just paused and I thought, you don't like where this is going any more than I do. And she said, no, I hate this. And because I paused, and then I said, do you have any idea how we can prevent it from going where it usually goes? And she smiled at me and she says, I have no idea, but you're doing good.
I love it. All right.
Okay, dear.
Well,
Until our next
time, we're going to try to do these maybe on Sundays around this time.
Let's crowdsource. What do we call this? We're crowdsourcing you.
Yeah.
What do we call this?
What do you think we should call this? We've gotten some wonderful feedback about our dialogue around different topics of leadership, and I'm here close and personal with Dr. Mark Goulston, the author of, this is one of his books, Just Listen, and we're focusing on the art of listening because it's so critical to conversation and to dialogue and to intimacy in both business and in life. We've decided, because Mark and I have such similar values.
And we got to talk about her wonderful book.
Not today. Today is about you, and really adding value to the folks that are watching. And so we're going to be doing this once a week. We've decided we're going to have our little show, I guess, once a week. We won't make it longer than 30 minutes, so it's not very long. But we do need a name. Give us a name. We have this Blues Brothers theme today, and it's just kind of fun. So we're kind of fun. And so we're planning on doing some great things together, and just starting with this. And so if you would just tap underneath, and then if you want to ask any questions of either one of us, please go ahead and do so, and we will answer right here if you want to ask any questions online or offline. And so until next time, have a super fantastic rest of your weekend.
Right, and just listen.
And just listen. Bye, everybody.